So back in 1985, Nintendo reinvented the video game landscape in the United States by releasing the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES, which was a huge success for the company. But all of us know that this system originally released back in Japan in 1983, known as the Famicom. The Famicom was such a huge success in Japan that Nintendo actually released the Famicom Disk System in 1986, which was an attachment that allowed to play cheaper games because of using 112 kilobyte floppy disks instead of cartridges. And these floppy disks actually allowed for better sound quality in some games as well. Now, shortly after the initial February 1986 launch of the Famicom Disk System, in July of 1986, Sharp introduced a system that combined both of these systems into one device, the Twin Famicom. Now, this was officially licensed by Nintendo, and this system combined your Famicom and your Famicom Disk System into one console all of its own. And it actually had some additional features not available on the Famicom or the Famicom Disk System. So today, I want to take a look at my Sharp Twin Famicom, the system itself, what makes it unique, and of course, the games that are available on this system. Now, before we get too deep into the dive of the Sharp Twin Famicom, I want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of this video, which happens to be Under the Jolly Roger for the Nintendo Switch. Want to sail the sloppy seas in search of booty, plunder, and take out your opposition to become the greatest pirate of all time? Then Under the Jolly Roger for the Nintendo Switch is a game you should have on your radar. Reminiscent of games like Sid Meier's Pirates and Pirates of the Caribbean, Under the Jolly Roger offers a ton of different gameplay types to keep you occupied. From sea battles in your trusty sea vessel, to leveling up your pirate crew to take on some of the hundreds of games missions, to even battling it out on land to capture all the treasure for you, Under the Jolly Roger offers a pirate experience and depth like no other game on the Nintendo Switch, even more so with the new DLC that adds in new game features and new missions. And from April 22nd to May 12th, you can get Under the Jolly Roger on sale for 35% off, going down from $17.99 to $12.99. Check out the link in the description box down below, and a huge thank you to Under the Jolly Roger for sponsoring this video. Alright, so as you can see, I have a boxed Sharp Twin Famicom system, and you would think I spent a lot of money on it. You know, back when I used to go to conventions, when, you could go to conventions, I used to see these systems for like $300 a pop just out of the box, and I always thought that was kind of expensive. I actually got this off of eBay from a Japanese seller in box for like $200 shipped. So if you're in the market for one of these, like, they're not really that bad right now, especially if you're willing to go and basically buy them from a Japanese seller and just wait a little bit. I mean, don't be impatient for this. It's not like it's going anywhere, but this is the box that it comes in. A cool little box, very yellow. We got some Mario on it, of course, as Mario is a huge star in the world of video games. As I said, this system released back in June of 1986, and the box is actually in pretty good shape. The styrofoam is nice and everything, and it got a little Legend of Zelda on it as well. So a really nice box, but a box doesn't matter if the system itself isn't cool, and this system is a very cool system. So taking a look at the system here, you can see that we have a lot of things going on. Now, this system actually came in a couple different colorways. There's the all red one that I commonly see all the time. There's the black and red one that we have here, and then there was a more limited one that was sort of like Seattle Seahawks colors. It was like green and bluish, kind of cool looking system, but the black and red is my favorite. The all red is just kind of too bold in my opinion. I think this is a beautiful combination of some interesting things. Now, one interesting thing about this system is there's no Nintendo branding on it whatsoever. It says Famicom, has the Sharp stuff on it, but there's actually no Nintendo branding on it. So you would think that Nintendo would want there to be something on here, but they didn't make this system. Technically, Sharp made it, which makes it the NES that, well, Nintendo never made. Now, of course, you have your cartridge slot here, and there's a slider here, which basically allows you to switch between the disc and the cartridge. So in order to open up the cartridge slot, you do have to move the slider, and then it locks into place, allowing you to play your disk system games. Looking at the front of the system itself, you can see we have a power button and a reset button, and here is the disk portion of the system. You hit this button here, and out pops your disk. Now, these are the 112 kilobyte floppy disks that this system utilized. And something you'll notice right off the bat is the fact that it has this Nintendo branding on the actual disc itself. This was actually something done for anti-piracy, because Nintendo figured if they put something like this in there, and then when you read the disc on the Famicom disk system, people would actually have to engrave stuff in there in order for the discs to work. Now, of course, people did engrave stuff on there, so piracy still ran rampant on the system, but it is an interesting little touch. each disc has its own A and B side. And what was cool about it is, for a lot of games, you could play a game on side 1, and then side 2, you could go to a kiosk in Japan and actually download another game onto your disc at a fraction of the price that it would be when if you were looking at something like a cartridge or something like that. So this was really a cost-saving message for Nintendo to say, hey, you know, you can get our games at a fraction of the price if you put them on the disc. So this was something, you know, very interesting. You would never see anything like this anymore. I mean, digital games cost the exact same amount as your physical versions of the games, but it was actually very cool. One of my cartridges actually has 2 games on one disc. My Super Mario Brothers 2 has golf on the other side, so a really interesting feature. Of course, you can play all of your Famicom games on your Famicom disk system as well. These are 2 in my collection. I like how they have different colors for them. Like, even the cartridges themselves are different. There's little differences in there. I don't think that my Dr. Mario is a bootleg cartridge. I don't know, maybe it is, but it does work on my Famicom Twin system, so I don't know why it looks so different, but I do have a couple different color cartridges as well. One of the most interesting things about the whole Famicom library of systems is that, well, the controllers are attached to the system itself. And yes, it absolutely sucks because this cable is not very long at all, but it is an interesting thing. You get 2 controllers with the system, and the second controller actually has a microphone built into it. Now, this wasn't really utilized all that much. The only game that I know of off the top of my head that the Famicom disk system uses with this microphone is actually The Legend of Zelda. There's a Poe puzzle that you have to scream into the microphone in order to scare a Poe away. So it's something that they could have really expanded upon, but it's definitely very interesting to see Nintendo putting a microphone in something before the Nintendo DS. A lot of people seem to think that that was the first system that really had a microphone built into it, but no, this system actually had a microphone built into the second player controller. Now, if you're looking for another controller option, you can plug in things into the side here. It is not the standard connector that the NES has, so you can't use a standard NES controller, but there are third-party controllers and more advanced controllers like the NES Advantage that you can utilize this slot in. Looking at the back of the system, you see we have our slot for our power supply, but what makes this system great is that we have AV out on it. We don't have to worry about coax cables, a little RF adapter, or any crap like that. No, you can utilize the yellow and the white of an RCA cable to play your games on this, which is great for when you're trying to play it on the modern age. You can't really use RF adapters anymore, so I could use this with like my Retro Tink, hook up my Retro Tink, which is actually how we're going to play the games on this when I show you guys the games. So this is a big addition in my opinion. Definitely something very awesome because the original Famicom was actually an RF out. All right, so we took a look at the software for the system. We took a look at the hardware of the system. We took a look at the box of the system too. But now we have to actually play these games and see what these games are all about. So let's check it out. All right, so to kick things off, we are going to take a look at one of the best Famicom games that never was released on the NES, at least when it originally came out. Of course, you can get repros and things of that nature. It's available on the Castlevania collection right now, but that is Kid Dracula, which was a more of a Mega Man style game that just happened to take place within the Castlevania universe. You can see here the character sprites themselves are definitely a lot different than you would expect in a Castlevania game, but this was a super fun game. The problem was that like the first level boss kinda was exactly looking like a KKK leader, so you can't do that, and obviously it meant something different in Japan, but that's kind of the consensus as to why this game never got localized. But that's one of the cool things about Famicom cartridges is a lot of the more expensive NES games, you can buy the Famicom version of them for a fraction of the price. So something like this, yes, you could just get, you know, a little converter for your NES to play your Famicom games. There's a ton of Famiclone systems that will also play your Famicom games as well. Now, like I said, I am capturing this on the actual system itself, the Twin Famicom. I'm using the Retro Tink to utilize that AV capability because God only knows how bad RF would look on this. And of course, it allows me to play on an HD screen, but definitely a very fun game. One of the, you know, more unique games in the Famicom library, but the Famicom disc portion is what I really want to focus on in this video. So let's take a look at some Famicom disc games. All right, so next up, we're going to take a look at a Famicom disk system game. Obviously, you can see here there's a little cool screen when you're putting in the disc itself. And of course, the whole point of the Famicom disk system was to lower prices of games, because you could just go to these kiosks, like I said, that were set up, and you would be able to rewrite what was on the actual disc itself for a fraction of the price comparative to a cartridge. Now, this game should be a game that I would say you would recognize, you know, it's kind of a popular game. It got a bit of a reskin in the United States, but this is Doki Doki Panic. Yes, did you know that Doki Doki Panic was Super Mario Brothers 2 in the United States? Like, there's a lot of people that don't seem to know that. Obviously, I'm just joking. That is one of the worst, like, retro gaming jokes ever. But Doki Doki Panic was, of course, the game that was reskinned as Super Mario Brothers 2 for the Nintendo Entertainment System, because we were Americans, all right? And Americans, you guys are not good at video games. So we are going to have to play a game that is easier for you guys to understand. You know, the monsters steal us away, help us. Oh my God, it's a very scary game. But yes, this is Doki Doki Panic on the Famicom Disk System, the game that pretty much changed what, you know, it really changed what Mario was all about, because you had this completely different game. So you can see here is the game in all of its glory. I really love the music in this game. I think it's super underrated. Like, just the little like, it's just such a catchy song. But yeah, you can see here it was, you know, essentially a sprite swap of, you know, this game that gave us what is now known as Super Mario Brothers 2. Now, what's funny is they actually have this game available with the Mario characters on the Famicom Disk System as well, called Super Mario Brothers 2 USA. So that was something that was kind of unique and interesting with this game. An awesome game. I think it's super underrated. I know it's kind of thought of as an odd child in the franchise, but I really enjoyed it. Now we're going to take a look at the real Super Mario Brothers 2, you know, the game that was just too hard for us Gaijins in the United States. American, you suck at gaming. We are going to not make you play this game. We're going to give you a reskin of Doki Doki Panic instead. I really don't care which game you consider to be the real Super Mario Brothers 2. In my opinion, they're both the real Super Mario Brothers 2, because, you know, they're unique games. They're completely different from one another. And this was, you know, a very cool game. This was a game that I definitely wanted to have on the Famicom Disk System, because, yeah, you know, it's been re-released on, you know, things like eShops and whatnot, but it's just cool to have the original. You know, this is it. This is the original Super Mario Brothers 2 that we never got stateside, as far as we knew, outside of, you know, message boards in the early 90s and things like that. This was, you know, a game that didn't exist. So it's just awesome to have this game. As you can see, it plays great. I'm sure you've played it a million times before, but just a game I definitely really enjoy. We're going to take a look at one more game on the Famicom Disk System, and then I'm going to wrap things up. So the final game we're going to take a look at is a Konami game that actually never released in the United States in any way, shape, or form. And that's a game called Falcion, I believe it's pronounced. It's obviously a shoot 'em up game, but what's interesting about this game is the fact that there's a 3D mode. So you can use those like Rad Racer glasses and, of course, utilize this game to play in 3D. It's a fun little game. I could sort of maybe understand why it never came out stateside, but yes, this was an exclusive to the Famicom Disk System. A fun, decent little space shooter. You can see some interesting textures, like these little rocks coming out. They almost look like 32X rocks. Like, let's be realistic here. So I really like this game. It's fun to just play it for a little while. I'm not very good at it, as you can tell, but I do have fun playing it from time to time, and definitely an interesting piece of video game history, as this game actually never came out stateside. So if you're looking for something exclusive on the system that you've never played before, this is definitely a game worth checking out. So overall, I love the Sharp Twin Famicom. I think this is the coolest Famicom system. I think that the Famicom and the Famicom Disk System attachment, it just looks kind of weird and gaudy, where this is sexy. This almost looks like a modern console when you take a look at other consoles that came out around this time, and it's just a system I absolutely love. I think it's fascinating that Nintendo outsourced this to Sharp, and the quality of the product that ended up coming out of this was just so high, and it was just a great thing. It reminds me a lot of the Panasonic Q, which is obviously the best GameCube you could buy, and really the best Famicom and Famicom Disk System you could buy, in my opinion, is the Sharp Twin Famicom. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know I don't do retro stuff all that much on this channel anymore. I kind of just got bored with it, honestly, but sometimes there are systems and unique things that I want to talk about. Obviously, you know, this ain't no, you know, gaming historian style video or anything like that. It's a little bit more raw, a little bit uncut, but that's why you come here. That's why you like me, and that's why you watch the videos. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of the Sharp Twin Famicom. Have you ever played one of these? Do you plan on picking up one of these? Like I said, they're pretty cheap on eBay. The games themselves, you can get a lot of American NES games for the Famicom for a fraction of the price. Even the disk system games aren't all that much, even the more exclusive ones. So it's definitely a system that's viable to collect for. It's definitely not too bad on your pocket either, and definitely a system I recommend checking out. So let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. A huge thank you to Under the Jolly Roger for sponsoring this video as well. Make sure you guys go check out that game during the sale or even after the sale. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.